record this. So good afternoon, everyone. It's October the 9th, 2023. It's a very difficult time in our world, and specifically the Jewish world. For us these days, it's almost overwhelming. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of everyone when I can say that these last 48 hours, we've all been glued to the TV, to the internet, to websites, to articles, to keep monitoring what's going on, and almost in this incredulous turn of events, what has happened. You know, this Israel update we've been doing for the past 3.5 years, and you know, we knew that today we would get a bigger group, a bigger crowd, because of the news. And oftentimes at the end of a meetup, I say something like, you know, things happen so quickly in Israel that the news that we're talking about today will be completely outdated by next week. Well, I can tell you that what we're talking about today will be part of the news for a long time to come, based on what is happening now. So the format for this afternoon, and we'll go probably a little longer than we normally do, is that we'll cover a number of areas relating to what's happening in Israel right now. We'll give you an overview of the map. We'll talk about the history of the area. We'll analyze exactly what happened. We'll bring in some personal stories as well. Talk about a number of the issues and associated with it, and then discuss what might happen in these next number of days and weeks, and then we'll open it up to any questions, any comments that you might have. So that's the format, and we'll begin. And I want to first of all acknowledge my colleague Jeff Agron, who is a staff member here at the temple, wears many hats, including that of staff person for the Israel Committee, and Jeff Graff, our executive director, is here, and of course my colleague Craig Burko, who we work closely together and is the co-host and handles all the details here behind me. And of course, this is under the auspices of the Israel Committee, led by Michael Conway and Jonathan Sepsenwall. So let's begin with the first map that we have. And I'll ask everyone to mute themselves, please. And we'll start with map number 1. So I wanted you to see this map just to give you a basic overview of the Middle East area and how it relates to Israel. So obviously Israel is in the gold there, and that you see that there are certain areas that are, I'll try to I don't think you can see my cursor, but I'll try to explain.
You can see
so you can see the cursor.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, great, wonderful. Okay, so you know, you can always see the background of a map based on some of the terminology. So when you see words like the West Bank, you know that it's not a Jewish-based map. If it had been a Jewish-based map, it would have the words, instead of West Bank, it would have Judea and Samaria. But here you have the West Bank, and it's called the West Bank because it's the West Bank of the Jordan River that comes down and feeds into the Dead Sea there. That's the Jordan River. So areas that have been, since 1948, when Israel became a state 75 years ago, till the Sinai campaign down here in 1956. And of course, the very consequential war of 1967, the Six-Day War, where four pieces of land were one in victory by Israel in June of 1967, and they included A, the Sinai Desert here in Egypt, B, the Gaza Strip, which is right here, this small coastal piece of land, which of course is the center of everything that's going on today. You have the West Bank, or as I said, Judea and Samaria of the Jordan River. And finally, you have this area up here in the north, just to the east of Syria, called the Golan Heights. And the Golan Heights was once part of Syria from 1948 to 1967. And Israel now is in control of that land here. You see the major city of Jerusalem, and of course, Tel Aviv, in the north, Haifa. But it's this area right here. You see where Beersheba is. It's to the east of Beersheba, and just southeast of where the Gaza Strip is, where everything that's happening now began and took place. Okay, and you know that Israel is surrounded by Egypt, by Jordan, by Syria, and by Lebanon up in the north. And as of this morning and this afternoon, this area in southern Lebanon, which was quiet, relatively quiet, it as well. Can everyone hear me? Jeff, do you hear me? Jeff Agron, you hear me? Good. I don't know why Linda's not hearing.
We hear you.
Good. Michael, you hear me? Weinberg?
Yep.
We
Good.
can hear you.
Clear.
We can hear you, Mark. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So hopefully Linda can get on soon. Craig, you're watching people coming in. And I'll explain in a few minutes, but another of the terrorist groups is here in southern Lebanon called Hezbollah, and there's been some shooting into the north of Israel from southern Lebanon, and that is on top of what's going on here in the area of the Gaza. So the next map that we'll show you is this one right here. Wonderful, good. So if you were to, zone in where it said the Gaza Strip, you see the area right here. You see that Gaza Strip. It's you see it in beige here. It's a short strip of land, but it's very densely populated. Close to 2 million people live in this area here. It's these cities here, these towns and kibbutzim, where everything took place this on Saturday. Probably the most famous of the towns, of the communities that that you've heard of in this area, is called Sderot. This past April, I was part of a Federation mission, and we had a Temple Beth Shalom bus, and on one of the days, we went to Sderot to visit the community there. And actually, one of the kibbutznikim, one of the members there, showed us how they have to go into bomb shelters, and even samples of some of the rocket remnants that had been dropped on that kibbutz in the past. But the terrorists that came over from Hamas came into this whole area here. This kibbutz here called, you see this kibbutz Be'eri right in the middle of the map, kibbutz Be'eri. They found Craig, people are saying that they're trying to get in, please. That this kibbutz here, kibbutz Be'eri, that over 100 people were killed on that one kibbutz as well. And then Saturday morning, in this area here near kibbutz Re'im, right here, there was a music festival. It was called the Supernova Rave Music Festival. It's a very popular thing in Israel where kids, some high school kids, some kids that are off from the army, young people after the army. It was a holiday. It was a holiday weekend. It was Simchat Torah. And for many young Israelis that are secular, it's a chance to go out into the woods. It's an hour and a half south of Tel Aviv. And they were in this wide open area, enjoying Friday night all the way into Saturday morning. It was one of those all night things. There were tents and there were beds set up and campfires. And as we've heard now, the rockets that first landed in the area and then the gunshots, they were told that the DJs and the people on the loudspeakers said that there's what's called a code red, and there you have to take cover. Well, I just because people have asked, Nava's sister has a daughter named Inbal. She and her boyfriend were at this rave party outside of Kibbutz Be'eri, and they heard the rockets. Inbal's boyfriend said, "We need to get out of here." They ran to their car. They started going out one way, and the security guard said, "Go the other way." And as they were speeding away, they saw off in the distance, they saw some of these Hamas terrorists, and very, very sadly, 260 young people's bodies were found there. And with technology today and with social media, with Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and Telegram and all these different things, people were getting videos almost immediately. And among a number of questions that have come up and will continue to come up is, where was the army? Why was there such a failure in intelligence? Why wasn't there a quicker reaction? And not only at this rave festival, but on the different kibbutzim. I know this area very well. I happened to many years ago. I lived in this area here on a kibbutz right in between Be'eri and Nachal Oz. Nachal Oz was also a kibbutz this past Saturday that was infiltrated by Hamas terrorists.
Yeah,
and
now I'm on it. Thank you.
Alice, we hear you. And then a number of us were just on a Zoom call with the Reform movement, and this one person was telling us this harrowing story. And when you watch on Facebook now and on Instagram, and if you see on TV, and yesterday, every single news station, and the Meet the Press and This Week in George Stephanopoulos and Meet the Nation, Face the Nation, all of them for the first half of their shows were covering these kinds of stories. This area here, before 2005, this was an area in Gaza where Arabs would come over from Gaza, and I know this only for a fact because I lived on this kibbutz called Alumim, right here between Be'eri and Nachal Oz, and the Arabs would come over and work in the factories with us on the kibbutz, and it worked really well, but it's a different time, it's a different era, because as part of peace plans and as part of negotiations, in 2005, Israel gave Gaza, returned a power of Gaza to the Palestinians. The Palestinians had a choice to vote for who would govern them, and they had two choices, and the two choices were Fatah and were Hamas. Hamas ended up winning, and over these past 18 years, there have been a number of conflicts, a number of battles, a number of I don't want to say wars, but really these damaging experiences that we're had. And the reason it is such, and people were comparing, the timing of this. It's 50 years after the end of the Yom Kippur War. And even yesterday, every single one of the news stations and Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State of the United States, who it seemed was on every single one of those talk shows yesterday, was constantly talked about the differences between this and other battles like the 67 war, the 73 war, where then it was state to state. Here, Israel is fighting a terrorist organization. And so they're not fighting an entire country's army or navy. They're fighting, and as we're going to see over these next number of days, they're going to be, it seems likely that they're going to be headed into Gaza and dealing on the streets. As a matter of fact, over 300,000 troops have been called to duty. And there are these stories and pictures of reservists coming to get organized and go into their units. I have two nephews. Nava has a brother with two sons. One is 27 and one is 25. Both are after the army. Both were out of the country this week with their grandmother. And they both got text messages, what's called Kav Shmone, which is a special alert mandating them that they need to come back to Israel and go into their units. They're both combat soldiers, and I would imagine by Wednesday or Thursday they will be ready and heading into the area in Gaza. And so the sheer numbers of what happened on Saturday, first of all, you couldn't believe it, because on Saturday morning, when we woke up, it was, thank you, Craig. On Saturday morning, when we woke up and it was 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, it was already 3 p.m. their time, and it had started at 6:30 in the morning. And we heard these shocking numbers that 100 people were killed and 150 people were killed. And now the number is over 800. 800 people in a country of 9.5 million people are killed in one day. Over 2,000 people are injured. And even most shocking, and I think what people have in their minds is the situation of hostages, and the fact that there are over 100 hostages that have been taken to Gaza. And I can't imagine. I really can't imagine what those hostages are going through. And there were pictures of children, pictures of an older woman in a wheelchair, pictures of young girls that were taken from that concert, and they showed the videos. They showed the videos of them being taken away. So the question now, and there are a number of questions. One of the obvious questions that people have, and I'm telling you, I'm not going to answer it, and nobody can answer it now. And there will be a time for those answers. One of the questions is, where was the intelligence? How was it allowed to happen? Everyone is thinking the same thing. Everyone asked Anthony Blinken the same thing. Yesterday, Minister Ron Dermer, originally from Miami, was on CNN with Dana Bash, or whatever her name is, and he was asked that question, and of course they all deflected for now, because, and the truth of the matter is, and the right answer is, now's not the time to discuss it. This is not the time. It's done. What will happen is that there will be investigations, there will be inquiries, there will be people that will take the blame for this, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. There are people that are going to have to answer for what in Hebrew is called, the word is fashla, for this really breakdown in whatever happened. That being said, I don't think we know. I know we don't know everything what happened, because I am positive that there were many soldiers, many policemen, many police personnel, security officials, and personnel that fought and gave their lives in battle to try and protect either the border where they were at, the wall that they were protecting, and so on and so forth. Listen, we know now that over 40 soldiers, 40 IDF soldiers were killed, and over 30 police and security personnel were killed. It's 70 people already. One of the questions, and people ask, listen, the United States has this, very strong connection with Israel, and for as long as the state has existed, Israel has had American governments, both Republican and Democrat, over the years. Now, that being said, there have been some personal conflicts, as we know, between former President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and so on. That did not take away from the aid that was given over the years of the Obama administration. And just on Saturday, President Biden, I'm sure you all saw it, in a press conference, I think it was Saturday afternoon or yesterday morning, with Secretary of State Blinken right behind him, made sure to announce that the commitment, the relationship, I think he used the exact words, is rock solid and is unwavering. And Israel knows that the United States will always have its back. And the United States has its intelligence people there as well. So again, I think, in the future, when at a certain point there will be inquiries, and I know that one of the things that people have been talking about is the fact that in today's technology, they have encrypted devices. When you all use WhatsApp, nobody can read, nobody can hear, because it's what's called an encrypted type of conversation. And so intelligence personnel may not have been able to overhear. But still, how could an operation of this size, of this magnitude, not be detected some way, somehow? And so fingers are being pointed at the government, at the intelligence area, at the defense area. Listen, there's a minister of security, a head of security named Itamar Ben-Gvir. I haven't seen his name once in the past 2 days. I haven't heard his name being mentioned at all. In fact, last week, the prime minister had a security meeting without Ben-Gvir there. And people are, there are some people that are saying that because of this government's direction in making judicial reform such a priority, they may have neglected the area to protect down south, and may have been looking at possible uprisings in the West Bank area and maybe in the north, and not focusing enough attention on the Gaza area. Another question that's come up is the role of Iran in all of this. And to me, there's no question that Iran has had some type of role in preparing both Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah up in southern Lebanon involved with this. One of the questions that kept coming up yesterday, and again, I even watched, and it's not, I even watched Fox News yesterday because I wanted to see the way they were covering this story. And I have to tell you, not being a Fox watcher, they did a heck of a job covering it and making it an emphasis throughout the day yesterday. So one of the questions that keeps coming up is this fact that the United States just released $6 billion as part of a negotiation. And there are some right-wing, unvalidated theories that $6 billion was used to fund this terrorist attack that took place on Saturday. Both Anthony Blinken, the American administration, the president and the administration have denied any of that. They say, in fact, that $6 billion is still sitting in a bank in Qatar, and has that money is closely watched, all of its funds as it's released by the U.S. Treasury. Another issue, and again, this comes to the relationship between America, between the United States and Israel, is the latest uprising in the United States House of Representatives. How quickly will the House be able to respond, to provide extra funding now that there is no speaker in the House with the removal of Kevin McCarthy last week? And what does that say? And again, yesterday on the shows, a number of House representatives, both Democrat and Republican, were on the shows to answer that question. And again, everyone agrees that the support of Israel, despite the turmoil and upheaval in the House, that the support for Israel will be there. So one more situation that I want to just share with you, and that is the possibility of a unity government in Israel. And this is a really interesting possibility. The biggest issue in Israel for these past 10 months has been, of course, the whole subject of judicial reform and the fracturing of the country and the splitting between the center and the right and the left and the right and so on and so forth. Well, guess what? During days of war, and Prime Minister Netanyahu declared war on Hamas on Saturday, that goes out the window. It's God forbid when the United States goes to war too. God forbid we have to go to war. The Congress, for the most part, is on the same page, and until later on when they start investigating and all that. So the question is there a possibility that opposition parties led by people like Benny Gantz, like Avigdor Lieberman, like Yair Lapid, will go into unity government for a few reasons. One, to show the strength and unity of a government. Two, that they can be able to be on the same page when it's creating a strategy for war against Hamas. And their number one priority now is first they had to cleanse, they had to make sure there were no Hamas terrorists left inside the country. And as up to 12 or 16 hours ago, there were still individual Hamas terrorists hiding in some of the areas. There were still people that were told in those kibbutzim that you saw that were forced to be inside their homes, and it's only in the last 12 hours that finally they were allowed to come out, because at this point it seems as if there are no Hamas terrorists left inside of Israel. But the most important, the number one priority that everyone has on their mind now is getting those hostages back. And how will Israel be able to get those hostages back? What will have to be done? Many years ago, the most famous hostage that was taken was Gilad Shalit, and a very famous story. He was a prisoner for a number of years, and it took really years of negotiation and discussion. And there were people that were upset. I mean, there were so many people happy, but it was very costly in terms of what Israel had to give up for the release of Shalit. And I will tell you that one of the most important values in Judaism, and one of the things the government, any leader does and tells its citizens, is that God forbid a soldier is killed in battle outside of Israel, they will do everything they can to get that body back, to give it a proper burial as that person deserves. There were these harrowing images, and again, it's like when you pass a car accident, you don't want to look, but you look. And there were these images. There was one, just this terrible image, and you say, where's the humanity? Where there was a dead soldier, dead Israeli soldier, and this mob of not even of animals, did what they did to that body. And I just think of the family, and I think of that person. And now you go on any of the websites, you go on Facebook, you go on TikTok, you go on Instagram, and you start seeing stories of individuals, and now too, these stories of heroism. This I think Karen Revo's on the call. I think a number of you were on that 2:00 call with people from the URJ and people from Israel. And this one person told this story about he and his family that were that had to hide in what's called the safe room. In every house, in every apartment in Israel, there must be a safe house, which is concrete protected and against bombs, and how his parents came and saved them and saved soldiers that were at this. But that's what's going to happen over these next number of days. You're going to hear these amazing stories of bravery, of courage. It's hard to believe the Yom Kippur, those of us that can remember the Yom Kippur War, but that it's 50 years ago. And there's someone, in Israel whose name is Avigdor Kahalani. And Avigdor Kahalani, who is now probably in his late 70s, early 80s, was one of these heroes in the Yom Kippur War, who was a tank commander and was able to, almost single-handedly, protect an area there, and so the area wouldn't be run over by the Syrians. And 50 years later, he is still considered one of Israel's great heroes. I would imagine we will learn about more acts of heroism over these next number of days and weeks. And so we as Jewish people, and it's really nice to see, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of you here on this call, and we all want to do something. We all feel like this responsibility, this connection to what's going on in Israel. For most of you, and I'm looking at all the names here, most of you don't know, people that were killed, people that were hurt. You don't, but you feel it because you're Jewish and because you have a connection to Israel. And here tomorrow, if I get any more emails about donating to this fund and that fund and this fund, thank God it's all good that we can do that and we have the ability to do that. Tomorrow night, we have a chance as a community to stand up, to be together. I hope there'll be a few thousand people tomorrow at the Miami Beach Holocaust Memorial at 6 p.m., that we can be there and we can show our unity for Israel. Yesterday I was watching protests in New York City, and I think in LA there was one, and there's in Sunrise, Florida, there was one. where there was a group of Israelis and then there were a group of Palestinians, and they started almost hitting each other, I think, in Sunrise. And you know, I try to be fair about things. Honestly, I think of myself as being fair, but how do you justify what was done on Saturday? What did those kids, what did that Holocaust survivor, what did those young teenage girls, what did they do? Why are they involved? Why were they killed? And when you think of the sheer numbers, a country that's as small as Israel, you know, they keep talking about, they keep mentioning it as our 9/11, our Pearl Harbor, our whatever it was. I think when history looks back at October 7th, 2023, they will look back on one of the darkest days in the 75 and a half year history of the state of Israel. Because, I mean, Kibbutz Be'eri has 1,000 people total in its kibbutz. 100 people. 10% of that community is gone now. Those 260 kids, young people that were, you know, there are families that don't know where their kids are yet. There are many families that you know, they don't know if they're hostages. They don't know if they've been killed. They don't know where they are. They've been asked to bring, you know, hairbrushes and different things to identify DNA. So when Israel looks back, and we look back on a number of years, and you know, there'll be the War of Independence, and there'll be the Sinai Campaign, and the 6-Day War, and the Yom Kippur War, and you know, Operation Peace for the Galilee. This war that's, you know, it's a war when there's a title to it, and the prime minister has already given it a title. It's called Operation Swords of Iron. You know, I'm looking at Larry Horowitz on this on the call. Larry's granddaughter just went to Israel, just made the decision on her own that she wants to be part of the IDF, of the Israel Defense Force, as a lone soldier, as a young person who's committed to Israel, to Judaism, and I asked myself, I think of that person, I think of all those young people, I think of, you know, today when you turn on any of those websites in Israel, and you see thousands of people lining up to give blood. You see groups of people bringing food on the street, like as the jeeps and the tanks roll by, and they give them, the soldiers, you know, sandwiches and juice boxes and candy, and out of this terrible tragedy, and you know, the state of Israel is its resilience to overcome tragedy. You know, it's known for it. It's this small country in the middle of this entire Arab region. This one is a tough one. This one is really hard to understand. You know, Nava, who grew up in Israel, lived on a kibbutz in the center of the country near Netanya. You know, I think every Israeli, you know, I've got to tell you this story. Over these last number of weeks with the judicial reform and the protests, you know, there are these opportunities to protest here in the United States. Some people do, some people don't. And now I think about this idea of not protesting, but showing unity for the state of Israel. And what a different whole, completely different from here to there, this opportunity will be. So my last thought is, and then I'll open it up because I've spoken for a while, is this. what happened. It's happened. It's what's going to happen now? How will Israel retaliate? I can tell you this: Hamas is going to get it this time. There is no doubt in my mind that the government, and I think all the people of Israel are on in agreement that it's time, that this is a time that they need to be they're going to pay the price for what they did on Saturday. It will be a high price, and unfortunately, and I'm saying it now, there will be a number of civilians that will be killed as well, and that's only because they hide among the community there. They hide in cities, they hide in buildings. You know, the IDF can identify where they are, and they can drop these drones and these rockets and these missiles and these bombs. But unfortunately, there will be people that will die. But you know, one of the people asked this question, and Karen was there as well, and they asked, and you know, when you think about it, it's such a sad question. The question was, are there enough rabbis to lead all these funerals? And you
There's
know,
not enough.
yeah, the fact of the matter is, many of these victims on these kibbutzim are not religious, are secular Jews. They may be connected to you know, the Reform movement, or not connected at all. And you know, the soldiers and the police are a separate thing. And so, you know, it's going to be, these next number of days and weeks in Israel are going to be very difficult. Mark Revo is there now. He's up in the north, thank God. But even today, bombs were going off. Listen, my Nava's daughter.
Yeah, he heard. You know, he heard the missiles up in the north.
Yeah. Nava's daughter lives in Givatayim, which is right outside of Tel Aviv, and she was in and out of bomb shelters this whole weekend. And she's got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so imagine you know, that trauma. But I think of the trauma of those hostages and those people that had to deal with everything they dealt with on Saturday. So I think us here in Miami, I think we have a number of responsibilities. One, to continue to show our support for Israel. Two, if we have the resources and the means, to donate to whatever cause you feel is important. I think, you know, to have a chance to show your physical support is also very important. And this Friday, I believe that we're going to dedicate our service and to Israel. And I know Cantor Peretz got some program later on at 8:00. And I have to tell you this story, because I'm looking, you know, I see Alice is with us here. A number of you were going to come tonight to hear Matt Gutman speak. And Matt Gutman is this, you know, ABC News journalist, and we were going to have probably 80 people here. And Saturday morning at 10:00, he texted me and said, Mark, I think I'm going to have to cancel the program. I'm being told I have to fly to Israel. And yesterday at 6:00 on the ABC World News at 6:30, he was already there. And if I showed you this video, Craig doesn't want to let me show it to you, but there's a video from today where where Matt Gutman is on the streets in Sderot, and suddenly a bomb goes off, and they hadn't heard. You know, in Israel, you get a siren, and when a siren goes off, you have about, you know, 60 seconds to 2 minutes to get into a shelter. He didn't hear that. And so you hear like the bomb going off and him running with the helmet on. And it's just one more example. So we'll reschedule that. And you know, when you try to put things in perspective, who cares that we have to postpone the program? I wish we didn't have to postpone the program. I wish we didn't have to talk about any of this. I wish I could be at my regular 4:00 with my small group talking about all the things that I talk about every week with Israel. But unfortunately, today we have to deal with the tragedy and the reality of what happened. this past weekend in Israel. So our prayers go out. Rabbi Pomerantz yesterday sent out a beautiful note to our congregation with this prayer about protecting the state of Israel, and we have to support. I think I'm not telling you what you have to do. I just think it's our responsibility to continue to support the state of Israel, especially in trying times and difficult and tragic times like we are in right now. So I think the best way to do this is if your hand goes up, if you put that thing up where your hand goes up, then we'll be able to see if anybody wants to make any good. And by the way, Larry Hurwitz, for those that don't come on Mondays, Larry Hurwitz always goes first at this point to answer any questions. And one last thing, you're all welcome to join us every Monday at 4:00 for this update and join our regular crew that's here. So, Larry Hurwitz, please.
Mark, as always, thank you for your brilliant overview and specifically for delineating exactly what we as individuals should do and as a community what we should be doing. We all have the same questions. We all know that they can't be answered right now. I didn't want to raise the issue with my granddaughter, but now that you did, she is safe. She's in Jerusalem. But one of the places one can make contributions is to the lone soldier movement. These are individuals who are there on their own. The latest statistics are that several of the lone soldiers were killed in combat so far. A number have been wounded. It's an organization that would welcome your support, and I would encourage that among other considerations. And I hope to see all of you there tomorrow night. Thank you, Mark.
Great.
Thank you all.
Yeah, and I encourage you all to join. We have a WhatsApp chat group from Temple called Lovers of Israel. Any of you interested in going on that, that's again under the auspices of our Israel committee, and Karen Revo and myself happen to be the administrators. So we'll get you on that group if you would like. Please, anyone else with any comments? Jeff Agron.
Well, just quickly, I put it in the chat, but Mark mentioned last week Daniel Gordas being at this week. So anybody who was thinking of going to that too has been postponed for obvious reasons. And I'll just say, we have family in Ashdod, and it's my daughter's husband's parents and his whole family who live in that area of Israel. And his parents were actually in Europe on a vacation. They got home late Friday afternoon before Shabbat, and this, they walked into this, and then this morning I turned on CNN, and the first thing I see is these cars burning in the streets in Ashdod. And we texted them, and fortunately, it was not in their neighborhood, but very, very close. And it's heartbreaking. The last thing I'll say is that I'm sure you're inundated like I am, and everybody is, with emails from every organization that we all belong to or follow. University of Miami President Julio Frank just sent out a beautiful email in solidarity and support. And he and his wife always attend Shabbat services at Beth Am. So it was very nice. If anybody wants that, I could forward it.
Right. And I saw in the chat group, listen, you give to something that's important to you, or I got a call today from someone from one of the families here and asked, what is, to me, what do I think is an appropriate organization to send to? We have Federation here, that's the umbrella organization, but then you have hands-on organizations like Magen David Adom, like the Red Cross in Israel, like Hatzalah, like and there are a number of them today. But if you need any advice, and I'm not, I would suggest a number of them, and I'll be happy to talk to you, not on the Zoom group, but at another time. And again, they you just see them on the ground and you see what's happening there. And so thank you, Larry. And Larry, if you want to put that in the chat group or on our WhatsApp link, please do so for the Lone Soldier group. Okay. Miriam Steinberg, unmute yourself.
No, I
There
put
you
it
go.
already. I put it already in the chat. The lone soldier.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Jeff, can you send what happened about the what the president said? Can you send it to us?
Thank you, Miriam.
No, thank you.
You
Sorry.
know what? It's okay. If anybody wants to share, I know my regulars here, and I see a number of you here, and I'm really, really, we're all very pleased that you're here. And I probably can guess the reason, but why are you on this chat today? Why are you here? I probably know the answer, and it's a rhetorical question, but if anybody wants to answer, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, I work on Mondays, and today I didn't work, so I can join you. And I was very interested because I've been glued to the TV because of what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, thank you, Miriam. Thank you.
I'm here so I can be.
Hi.
Oh, yeah.
I
Who's
just
that?
I just want to be more informed.
Craig. Rachel, 1 second. Yeah, Craig, thank you.
Yeah.
Rachel Samick.
Hi, thanks for including me. Frankly, I feel like I always have so much to learn on this topic and felt like no time like the present to get more involved and learn from you and everyone here. So thanks for having me.
Rachel. Are you kidding? You're always welcome. And anytime anyone has any questions about what's going on in Israel or any specific questions about any subject relating to Israel, it's the fact that we're a community, where Temple Beth Shalom is the central part of this community here. It's really reassuring for me, I got to tell you, to know that there are fellow Jewish people in our community that are interested and involved. And like I said, I'm really hoping that tomorrow, I remember Larry Hurwitz, it was a few years ago. How long ago was that Pittsburgh shooting? How many years ago? 3, 4? Larry?
2018.
2018. So it's 5 years ago. And I can remember like yesterday, the gathering that we had at the Holocaust Memorial to combat anti-Semitism. It's 5 years later, and now we're going to have what I think will be a large turnout tomorrow. And I would imagine the police presence tomorrow will be quite visible, to make sure, we've been getting emails all day, and Larry's, is the head of security here, about making sure that we're being vigilant, and parents in the school, and rightfully so, there should be concerns, but tfu, we're trying to do whatever we can to make sure that we're doing the best job in terms of security. Any other comments on Israel? Any questions? Any thoughts?
It's sad that, the Pittsburgh thing we learned about, while sitting in synagogue on a Shabbat morning. And then this, getting up Saturday morning and just hearing a little bit. And then as the morning went on, and I was at synagogue here in Pinecrest, and, starting to learn more and seeing the alerts come in. And it's just,
Jeff,
it brought me back to Pittsburgh. Absolutely.
And I have to tell you this interesting side story, and that is, there's an Orthodox community in this neighborhood, and I just happened to go to this Orthodox synagogue early every Saturday Shabbat morning, and none of them knew anything, because for them, they don't turn on the TV, they don't turn on the radio. So when I got there on Saturday morning at 7:30. I had already known about what's going on, but I said to Gary Baumser, this great guy who's part of our minyan, I said, hold on, we have a special guest. Can you say hi to everyone? Say hi. Hello. Say hello. Can you say hi? No, that's Karen's beautiful granddaughter, who I get to spend every Shabbat morning with. none of them knew anything. And I said, something really terrible just happened in Israel. And I swear to you, I said this. I said, anywhere between 100 to 150 people were killed. I wish that would have been the number, because that number, and then yesterday they said the other day 200, then 400, and then 500. And now it's, I think, 800 or even 900. I'm not even sure what the number is, but it's, you take the 260 kids at the concert alone. And so I don't want to peek. I just want to say, it's a time that we stick together. These are what they call rough times, and we have to stick together through rough times. We're there for good times. We support the state of Israel, and I want to thank you all for being on the meetup with us today and learning more about what's going on. I invite you to come tomorrow to the community rally, solidarity rally at 6. Friday, I think there'll be an announcement about we're dedicating the service to Israel. I think tonight at 8:00, Cantor Parat is involved in a beautiful musical tribute program in support of Israel. If you go in our WhatsApp chat group, or if Jeff puts it in somewhere here, it's supposed to be lovely, and that's at 8:00 online
It's
somewhere.
in there. It's in the
Oh, great.
WhatsApp. Yeah.
Perfect.
I think
Great.
Gia put it in there. So
Thank you. So, and just as it's interesting, Alice just asked me tomorrow night, I was supposed to start a 3-part series on the Yom Kippur War. It was it's 50 years since the Yom Kippur War, and we had planned a book review tomorrow. We had planned a movie in November, and we had planned a veteran of the Yom Kippur War to come and speak to us in December. We are going to reschedule the book review because we feel the rally and being together as a community takes much more priority than the book review that we can always reschedule, thank God. So I will say thank you to all of you for being here with us. I appreciate the lovely comments in the side there. And thank you, Craig. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And we should only hear better news and positive outcomes and only good things coming out of Israel. Amen. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll